Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julie Bacon, and I am a Leadership Development Specialist with the Arizona School Boards Association. And welcome to the ASBA GCU partnership around school trauma. And I'm going to let Carol from GCU introduce herself right now.
Yeah, hi everybody, and welcome to our webinar. We're so glad you could join us this afternoon. We've had 3 previous webinars, so this is our 4th in a series, and we're super excited to bring our guests to you today.
Great, and I am going to let our guests introduce themselves. So if you just want to take it in order that the list is, Alec, you can start.
Yeah, Alec Thompson with Governor Doug Ducey's office, State of Arizona, and I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Campaigns. I also, as part of that in one of my campaigns, serve as the Executive Director of the Arizona Complete Count Committee. So we're leading the 2020 census effort for the state of Arizona. In addition to that, I do special projects and special initiatives, one of which I'll be talking about today, the Arizona Together initiative. So thank you, glad to be here.
Hi, my name is Claudia Weiss, and I am the Communications Chairperson for the Arizona Association of School Psychologists. I am a school psychologist, and I work in the Agua Fria Union High School District.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Yemen Bernal, and I am a board member with the School Social Work Association of Arizona. And I am a school social worker in a Title I school in the Amphitheater School District in Tucson.
Hi, this is Bill Lucas. I'm a high school counselor at Agua Fria High School, located in Avondale, Arizona. I'm also a member of the Arizona School Counselors Association Board of Directors.
Great, thanks to all of you for being here. The original topic for this webinar was legal perspectives on school trauma. And Carol and I felt we were in a very unique situation. And so we pivoted a little bit and got a different topic together. And you can look for that, the original topic, sometime soon. We're still going to do that. We're just trying to react to what's going on in our world right now. One of the things that we wanted to talk about was to just give you some insights into the things that are happening during emergency remote learning, the challenges that our teachers and staff are faced with, and then some of the resources through the Arizona Together initiative that the governor's office has put through.
And Julie, can I just stop for a minute? This is Carol,
Please.
everybody. And just as a reminder, if you have questions throughout the webinar, please submit those questions to us via the chat function, and we'll be answering them throughout the webinar. So you don't need to save it till the end. You can go ahead and ask us questions as the webinar is going on. We'd love to have your interaction.
Great, thank you, Carol. Great. So one of the things I think that we know anecdotally, and I'm not going to go through each one of these 10 key insights, but I do want to mention a few things. I think teachers are working harder than ever on instruction and communication. It is difficult to do this remotely, and I think we're seeing the challenges of inequity. We know that there are equity issues, and teachers and district leaders are trying to address that, but we can definitely see a stark difference in some of our communities. You know, one of the things that I think I have seen music teachers posting is how difficult it is to teach music remotely. So the arts are tough to teach. And we don't 100% know what this is going to look like as we look to reopen schools in the fall. So I know a lot of districts are trying to work on that as we speak and thinking of different scenarios, you know, plan 1, plan 2, plan 3. And so that's definitely a challenge that we're facing from a leadership perspective. Morale, we can see is significantly changed, and that's something that we know that our teachers have. Morale is an issue in general because of how difficult their jobs are, but this is, I think, just exacerbated that situation more so than just a regular teaching environment. What we know from Arizona is that calls to the child abuse hotline have decreased by 25% in recent weeks. and this should say Phoenix Police have seen a decrease from February to March in child abuse reports. And, you know, these decreases are not what we would expect to see. It doesn't mean that there's less child abuse going on, that there's less abuse going on. It means that the people who report, a lot of that is coming from schools, from teachers and administrators in schools. So you can still do that remotely if you think something's going on, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with some of our professionals who are in the field. Student mental health supports, I think lots of teachers are significantly concerned, you can see, about mental health services and what they're going to be able to do during this emergency remote learning. There is a plan to provide continuing support for mental health needs, and that's of the schools that had supports in place, which we know is not all school districts and schools. So this is 92% of those who had something in place before. And you can see that there is a significant uptick in, you know, providing some services online or on the phone with our students and between social workers, counselors, and psychologists. This is a little bit about trauma-informed teaching remotely. It's, you know, the 3 tenets of trauma-informed care: safety, connection, emotional regulation. And here are some of the things that you can think about. You know, it is difficult to ensure a physical safety of a student during this situation, but there are things you can do to kind of create online learning spaces that feel safe. But there's lots of great examples all over the country of things that are happening, from polls that teachers are doing on platforms that kids can say, I'm good today, I'm okay, I'm not great. You know, I need to talk to you, kind of thing. So I think that's really good. And then finally, I think what we're seeing a lot of is teachers also need to take care of themselves. This is, I think, far more stressful than the average person understands how difficult it is to teach remotely. And, you know, build that routine, the self-care strategies, and rely on the people who are your supports. So one of the things that I want to talk about a little bit too is, you know, because we're school board members, that's what I am. I'm a school board member in the Paradise Valley Unified School District. And there are lots of things that districts are doing, and everyone's doing something slightly different that fits their community and their district or their school. And so we want to make sure that what we're talking about today are ideas and generalizations, because we don't want to get too in the weeds on what specifically everyone's doing, but rather the supports that are available through the professionals that we have working in our schools. And these would be great talking points to take back to superintendents if you're a board member. Just some ideas and thoughts that we hope that you'll learn a lot today about what's happening with our support staff and teachers and students.
Yeah,
So,
and Julia, I'm going to just jump in. I just really want to say thank you for sharing this point about the adults in the system taking care of themselves. We are hearing that from everywhere, that our adults are getting a little worn out. So thanks for highlighting the need for us to take care of ourselves as we are also taking care of our students. So thanks for that.
You are welcome. I am the mother of a teacher right now, and I can tell you firsthand how difficult this is. And so if you're a friend to a teacher, reach out, ask them how they're doing, and provide that support. And I'm now going to hand it over to Alec, and he can talk a little bit about the Arizona Together initiative. And Alec, when you want me to change the slide, just let me know and I'll do that. I'll advance it for you.
Thank you so much. And also thank you to everyone who's participating today, and also everyone who organized the call. You know, I think we're all, you know, facing challenges right now, whether you're, you know, in the medical profession or a teacher or whatever. But I think I've seen firsthand with a lot of teachers in my family how challenging it's been to adapt to our current situation. So just want to say thank you, because I think it's an important piece of making sure that our kids are safe and healthy during this time. And to that point, when the outbreak happened, and we really realized that this was going to have a major impact, and everything kind of started happening, there was an apparent need for to launch an initiative that that really brought resources to Arizonans. This whole process can be extremely overwhelming when you're trying to get services, and that might be unemployment, but it also might be health insurance. It also might be just figuring out some good resources as you're teaching your children at home. And so Governor Ducey launched the Arizona Together initiative, kind of bringing together all of those resources into one place. And if we could just go to the next slide. So ArizonaTogether.org, and forgive me, there's a few formatting issues on the slides, but the ArizonaTogether.org was launched as part of this larger Arizona Together initiative. Part of this was providing accurate and up-to-date information about COVID-19. So, we'll talk about that more in a second, but really making sure people knew what the status of the situation was in Arizona, and also what they could do to prevent it. Also getting help and resources for individuals and families. I talked a little bit about that before, and I'll expand on that later. Getting business assistance and guidance. Arizona Commerce Authority has really taken the lead on making sure that we're helping businesses through this time, and making sure that they have access to the resources that they need. And then opportunities to get engaged and actually support Arizonans who need it through volunteerism and contributing to the Arizona Coronavirus Relief Fund. So next slide. So here's just a sample of the website. You can scroll through it. I would encourage you to check it out. We have these different resources, and it's fully bilingual. So that was a big priority for us, was making sure that the initial portion of the site, so all of these tabs you see here are in English and Spanish. And so we really made that a priority for reaching our Spanish-speaking Arizonans. Next slide. So I mentioned this briefly, but we wanted to make sure that the most up-to-date information was available to Arizonans, and that there was a centralized source. I think sometimes when you're trying to find that information, you don't really know where to go. Maybe you end up on some third-party website. So we wanted to make sure that not only was it posted on the Arizona Department of Health Services, but also on the Arizona Together site. So that was a big component of this, is bringing together the state agencies so that we can place all of that information in one site. So information about the COVID-19 outbreak, of course, prevention information, and then of course how to get treatment if you think you might have been infected. Next slide. So I mentioned this, the centralized source for resources, I think, was the biggest piece. And this goes beyond just the state agencies, and it goes beyond, it also includes our private sector partners, right? So we wanted to make sure that, if you needed food assistance, obviously that's not something that the state provides in terms of the food banks. We wanted to loop in the food bank network and make sure that Arizonans could find that closest location to their home to get access to food immediately. And then of course, how to file for unemployment, how to file for access. Also access to things that apply to this group, like mental health and well-being. I think we are expected to see, I think, an increase, unfortunately, in a lot of these instances of child abuse, neglect, or maybe even depression, right, as a result of us being home and maybe in solitude. So we wanted to make sure that if you were visiting this site and you had those kinds of feelings, or you were noticing something, that you had that information right there available to you. Also bringing in our partners in providing homeless support, nutrition programs, so applying for SNAP, healthcare options, different resources for families. And then next slide. Then the other piece of this was, you know, a lot of people were reaching out to us, reaching out to the governor's office saying, you know, how can I help? What can I do? And, you know, I think that there was an initial surge of, you know, the less vulnerable population saying, you know, I'm happy to, you know, deliver groceries to seniors. I'll go grocery shopping. And we saw a ton of this kind of activity. So we wanted to give Arizonans who maybe didn't have that natural source for getting engaged a resource to do so. And then also providing nonprofit organizations serving Arizonans with that volunteer support if they needed it. So we've registered, I think that number is actually a little bit closer to over 1,200 now, but we've registered people in every county. Really excited about this. And then we've also developed new partnerships with, you know, Valley of the Sun United Way, the Food Bank Alliance, and others to get them support. We've been pushing a lot of people to Valley of the Sun United Way if they're in Maricopa County, because they do have a really comprehensive volunteer structure. So next slide. To date, we've raised a little bit over 8.2 million through the Arizona Coronavirus Relief Fund, and we're really excited about this. We will be helping a lot of organizations that are working to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on Arizonans, and this ranges from everything from providing PPE to funds to continue programs, so even everything to the arts. And we've gotten a ton of interest in applications, of course, and then obviously we've done pretty well with raising the money, and we have a really strong committee leading this effort. Mike Bidwell from the Arizona Cardinals contributed the initial donation to get the fund started, and we've seen some great success since. Next slide. So this is the piece I think that probably everyone on this call would be most interested and most relevant to this conversation, is the Home Healthy and Connected toolkit. So what we did is we took all of these different resources that maybe were a little bit more, I don't want to say positive, but, you know, inspiring during this time, you know, making sure that as we're home, we're staying active, we're keeping our brains moving, we're keeping our kids moving, we're keeping, you know, everyone in the household moving and learning and connected to each other, because we really don't want to, you know, lose any progress during this time. So we integrated videos from local gyms. We gave mental health resources focused on mindfulness and those kinds of tools. We added virtual learning opportunities, and then just some suggestions for staying connected, like, you know, calling family and that kind of thing. So this is a living and breathing site. I should have mentioned that. And this page is living and breathing. So we're adding new things constantly, adding new resources, and looking for ways to adapt the website and adapt this page as we progress and as we monitor how this situation is impacting Arizonans and how it can contribute to, you know, the return stronger theme that we're moving towards. Next slide. Am I frozen? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, Alec, we can hear you. Julie, are you able to advance?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, the slide, I think I'm on the right slide, the community support, the Arizona Way, stories of community support, business support.
I might be frozen. I will I will refer to my own computer.
Okay.
Hopefully.
And that would be in this PowerPoint slide 17, Alec.
Okay. Yeah, so just the kind of last piece of the initiative and the Arizona Together initiative and the website is the Arizona Way. So we've seen Arizonans step up in ways that are just truly incredible. And we really felt like it was an important thing to feature those stories, to, you know, share some positive things that were happening in the state, and then also encourage others to do the same. And so I would highly encourage everyone to check out Arizona Together / the Arizona Way. It is a really great story. We're adding to it constantly. The governor has featured a lot of these stories on his social media and also through email and that kind of thing. And I think we've seen a lot of these in the media, but this one, this website really congregates all of those and features a lot of great things that are happening all across the state. So next slide. So that's pretty much it. That's the Arizona Together initiative. I think Governor Ducey has been really focused on, ensuring that everyone has the access to the resources that they need, whether that be financial support or virtual learning opportunities. And we're working to make sure that all of those are in one place for Arizonans. One thing I didn't totally touch on, but we're also really focused on supporting the business community during this time. And the website will, and also workforce opportunities, is kind of the next direction that we're moving towards. So, while we are still totally focused on monitoring this situation and protecting the public health, I think the governor has made that the topmost priority. But we also know that moving forward, we're going to have to work really hard to make sure that we're in the place that we were before and beyond that. So, we're hoping to return stronger and focused on getting Arizonans that information and resources that they need to be part of that effort. So that's it for me, but happy to take any questions.
Yeah, Alec, I had a question. I think one of the things that we know is that all of this affects how kids do in school. So how their parents being employed, having enough food to eat, having the medical and health and emotional support that they need. So I appreciate that all of this has been put together in one place, because the wheels have so many spokes, and this is a great place to get this information in one central repository. We do have some additional resources that we'll talk about later in the webinar. But the one question, we do have people from outside of Arizona on this webinar. Do you know, or it sounds like other governors and other states are doing similar projects. Do you have any knowledge of that, and where people should look if they're not sure?
Yeah, every state has taken, based on my experience, every state has taken kind of a unique approach. Some have, done the fundraising and the volunteerism piece that was separate from the resource piece. Colorado, for example, they launched the fund actually before us, and the volunteer piece before us, but they didn't necessarily integrate the resource piece. And I think that's something that Arizona did in a really unique way, that we tied all of that together, because I think that there's so much information right now, and there's so many different people involved in this conversation, between state agencies and private sector partners and whoever, that we felt like it was so overwhelming. We wanted to make this as easy as possible for people to find whatever it was that they were looking for. That being said, there's great work happening, I think, nationwide, and I think every state's kind of taking a unique approach in terms of getting this information out. Based on what I've seen, a lot of it is, mostly housed on, state websites and that kind of thing. But that's mostly what I've seen. I would be curious if anyone had any ideas of good examples that they've seen, because we'd love to, steal any good ideas and integrate those here in Arizona.
You sound like a teacher. The educators are all about sharing ideas and working together for the best things. So thank you so much for this information. We're gonna switch gears and do a little panel discussion with the professionals that we have with us. And
hey, Julie, before we switch, some people are having a hard time finding the chat. So just know that you can pop that out of your toolbar. If it seems to be disappearing whenever we advance the slide, then they can't see their chat anymore. So you can pop that out so that you can continue seeing it, and feel free to use that chat if you have questions. We thank Victoria had a question earlier. We were able to answer that, so keep them coming.
Yeah, thank you. Great. So we came up with a number of questions, but there may be other questions that you all have. So as Carol said, either use that question box or the chat feature to give us whatever questions you have. Claudia, let me start with you. What have you seen as being some of the most challenging issues teachers and school staff are dealing with as it relates to trauma and mental health during this time?
Thank you. So we've had some students who struggle with task initiation, they struggle with work completion, and they are feeling completely overwhelmed and frustrated with the online format of instruction. So we've also had students who unfortunately just have seemed to have disappeared. We know that those are students that have mental health challenges and we're not sure what's happening. We're reaching out to families and to the student, and they're not checking in with their teachers, they're not completing their work, and that's very just so frightening for us. And then we've also had students that we know are struggling because their home situation may not be the most safe and healthy situation, and that's where they are 24 hours of the day.
Yeah. Bill, Yemen, do either of you want to add anything to that?
Just what Claudia has said, knowing that your students are hurting, the kids that you know that are my frequent flyers, hear from my coworkers, oh gosh, I wonder how this student's doing. I've tried to contact them. I've sent emails. I've phoned, home, just kind of check with the parent. And, if you don't get a reply, just, kind of a general worry as to how they're doing.
I would
Right.
say this is Yemen, exactly the same thing. It's just being out of contact with some of our most at-risk students. And that's a challenge in terms of, being concerned about them and being able to provide them with support. I'm also finding that that's one of the biggest stressors or biggest challenges for our teachers. I think it's very hard for them emotionally to have lost contact with students that they know are vulnerable and at risk. And they're struggling with just feeling like they're not being able to be a support to them or to affect that change. So I think it's difficult for both the students and emotionally for the teachers as well.
Yeah, I think that is one of the issues. The lack of being able to contact people, students and families is really difficult. And I think, I also have a social work background, and I think one of the things that we might be facing is that families have moved. They've left
Yes.
the area. They may have left your district, given some of the economic hardships that some of our families are dealing with in normal times, is probably just exacerbated now. So even going to their home, you may not be able to find them. So I think those are some of the things that everyone is worried about. When we're teaching in a remote emergency situation, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard Carol say she wanted to talk to me. What should teachers look for to assess the safety and well-being of students? It's easy to do that when you're in a classroom with a child because you can visually see them. How are teachers dealing with that, and what should they be looking for as they are in these online formats with students? And Yemen, I'm going to throw that to you.
Sure. I know that teachers are being charged with so much right now, and I know they feel that urgency to get that academic content in. But I think probably one of the most important things for assessment is just to allow time to just be present. And that is difficult remotely. But those same sort of tenets of just, allowing for quiet time or just a check-in. So that students have that connection and will feel comfortable talking. And then when you can create that space, I think students are more comfortable sharing some of their concerns. And then the things that we would be looking for, the things that we would always be looking for. Of course, there's overt statements or concerns about self-harm or suicidality, but also feelings of comfortable isolation, even above and beyond the social, physical isolation, feelings of loneliness or feelings of hopelessness. So I think if teachers can just give themselves permission to give that time for those kind of conversations, that's the best thing that they can do.
Claudia or Bill, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Go on,
Bill.
Claudia, go on.
So I think if in terms of what to look for, I think any kind of change in personality, a student that was really outgoing that now seems more reserved and withdrawn, a student who was a great student and really on it in the classroom, but seems to be having a hard time staying with it and concentrating, and then a student who's making complaints, physical complaints, headaches, stomach aches, when that's not typically their personality. And go ahead, Bill.
We sent out a reminder to our teachers about them being mandatory reporters because, right away in that first week, it was very stressful with school being shut down. We were on spring break when the decision was made, and coming back that next week, some kids shared some information about things that happened over spring break and to teachers, and we had to remind them, if they told you this, you have to make the call to DCS. Second and third hand, it's got to come right from you. So, I think that was a big thing to empower the teachers and remind them of their position.
Yeah, can one of you talk a little bit about what it means to be a mandatory reporter? I don't know if everyone's going to know what that means.
A mandatory reporter is, any adult teacher, counselor, administrator, that hears about abuse of a child that gets reported, that you make a report to the Department of Child Services for it to be looked into. And as you heard, the number of reports are way down because the people that students would normally talk to, the teachers and counselors, we're not seeing the students on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's a challenge for sure. Bill, do you want to lead us into this discussion around what the stressors are that teachers and staff are facing during this time?
I think it was Yemen who mentioned that just overall, teachers are really concerned about their kids. At the high school level, I mostly have contact with the counselors are worried about their kids. They feel sad, they feel terrible about the senior class and all the traditional things, activities. Just feel heartbroken for them not having a prom, not having an award ceremony. Some graduations are canceled and going, virtual. But right off the bat, teachers were stressed with how am I going to handle this? How am I going to shift gears from my traditional setting to going online? Teaching old dogs new tricks with technology isn't always easy. And trying to not do too much. I mean, and kids get that too. You don't want to overload them. Hey, why are they not reading my email? Because 6 other teachers sent them an email, and with an attachment and to a link and to a video and all that other, everything else that can go on with a lesson. Teachers are stressed just with their own life. You're not sitting in your classroom isolated. You're there with your spouse. You're there with your own kids. They have their own schooling to do. Everybody's under one roof. Maybe you have, I know people who've had, their parents come move in with them to take care of them during that time. There's a lot of stressors that people, by being in your own house are experiencing.
Great, thank you. Claudia or Yemen, do you have anything you want to add to that stressor situation?
I think
yeah,
that.
I would add,
Go ahead, Yemen.
Go ahead, Claudia.
We're all too public. Yemen, I'm going to ask you to go.
Okay. I was just going to add, I find as a school social worker, a lot of what I'm doing is trying to provide support to teachers. We've talked a lot about self-care. One of the things that I realized early on that many of our teachers were struggling with was just establishing healthy boundaries and then maintaining those. Partly just due to the nature of the situation and remote learning. We have students who are sort of in our homes through the computer, but they're in our living rooms, and our own children are there and our pets are there, and we're working different hours. So just by nature, those boundaries are a lot looser. But we also know that that can lead to burnout pretty quickly. So I find that teachers are struggling to manage how much should I work? Should I agree to do a Zoom call at 9:30 on a Saturday if that's the only time a parent can do it? Or what about my own children's schooling? So trying to balance all that and maintain that, that's been a struggle for sure for our staff, and we're trying to be able to provide them some support in that area as well.
Well, this is Carol. There was an interesting point in the chat about how, parents are really stressed out as well. And, the teacher may be the only one that they're talking to on a regular basis, and they're sort of taking that stress out on teachers in some cases. So any points or hints about helping with parents and reducing that stress for parents so that they're able to work cooperatively?
This is Claudia. We've had several of these situations with students, and we've sat down either as a school team with all the teachers and the parent and the student and worked out a schedule to break things down for the student and make the expectations clear with the student in front of the parent so that everybody's on the same page and the burden isn't on the parent to do all of the organizing. The teachers are helping to break things down into more manageable pieces as well. And then we've also had situations where just a teacher has sat with a student and developed an online schedule for them so that it's very explicit, they're doing this for this time, this for this time, and then it takes, hopefully some of the pressure off of the parent to have to be that heavy and get the student to sit down on the computer because it did come from the teacher.
Great points. Yeah, that scheduling is probably a big help.
Mm-hmm. And then can I just bring up one other point just about this question about the stressors that teachers and staff are facing? I would just want to add that, teachers usually work in a school, like Yemen was saying, with other people and with other teachers to support them. And now their usual routine of, having lunch with their peers and venting about things, that's gone. Their trip to the gym on the way home where they get out their anxiety and frustration, that's gone. So their support systems as professionals and as people are wiped out. And then we have to think about teachers and school staff as people that they may have experiences of trauma in their life. They may have histories of things like grief or substance abuse, and this type of situation can just exacerbate that with the stress that everybody's under.
Great, thank you. I know I have heard, some stories about teachers getting not so nice emails from parents, and I think we do have to put that in perspective that everyone is stressed during this time, and trying to show some compassion and kindness to each other is probably the best thing we can do at this point in time. Can each of you talk about how you are interfacing with school staff and the kinds of supports that you're providing to them and to the families and students that we have in the community? So I'm going to start with Claudia.
Thank you. So in terms of working with staff or support on a district level, I work with the Exceptional Student Services or Special Education Department, and we're working on policies and procedures that help the students, our students that have disabilities or our students that have special circumstances. I've also helped inform the district in terms of here's information about crisis policies remotely. In terms of in my building, as a school psychologist, I'm working on integrating new students into our district. And during all those meetings, we have teachers present. We're having meetings, like big team meetings for students that have problems or issues that need to be addressed. And so I'm working with like 6 teachers at a time, and we're working all together. So it's nice to have that FaceTime with the teachers, and we've really connected, I think, in a really different way. Kind of cut cut out a lot of the extraneous stuff because we're all in this situation together. And then in terms of meeting with students, meeting with students that are struggling, and just helping parents and or teachers help the students that are not thriving in this kind of environment, just from the behavioral learning perspective of a school psychologist. And I'm done talking.
Okay, thanks, Claudia.
Sure.
Bill, do you want to talk a little bit about what the counselors are doing in terms of students and staff and families?
I know Claudia, and she does a fantastic job with her department and students. I interpreted that question more from a technology side and what are we doing, and we have Google, we use Google Hangouts, Google Classroom. There's been so much new technology video-wise with Zoom and Loom and all these other lessons and ways that you can video contact people. We have a weekly virtual counselor cart. Counselor cart was the thing. We have a cart we roll out on campus once a week. And we tried to keep that as a regular thing, like, hey, students can stop in. This is the virtual counselor cart. We're available. You need to talk to a counselor. We tell them that's not, hey, it's got to be a general question. If there's other students there, don't let it be something confidential. Please reach out to us individually if it is. But there's a lot of just quick questions they might have about, grades and scheduling for next year or graduation information that, they have somebody they can speak with. And it's always great to see their faces when they do check in.
I bet. Are we kind of past the college application part in the applying for loans and grants and that sort of thing? Are you still working on those issues with some of your students?
Nationally, and even, I see it locally, a lot of students are changing their mind about college. Students that were, I'm out of state, I'm going, I'm like, well, maybe I'll stay in state. A lot of students that were thinking, I don't want to put money down to go live in a dorm. I'm going to go to the local community college. So we're seeing a lot of students shifting plans. Nationally, many colleges have pushed back their commitment day, which was always traditionally 1st to June 1st. And even FAFSA is allowing people to go back in and change, their information.
Oh, that's great. So FAFSA is, tell everyone what that is specifically.
FAFSA is what students fill out for the free application for federal student aid. It's based on your previous year's taxes. It opens up in October, and students, colleges use that to determine what the expected family contribution will be if they qualify for grants or loans, and how much parents will have to pay out of pocket. And if there's been a change due to COVID, unemployment, layoffs, etc., they can go and adjust that.
Oh, great. That's a good thing. Yemen, tell us how you as a social worker are doing this.
A lot of the same ways as far as modalities that we've talked about. In addition, just trying to do what we would normally do and be creative about how we go about it. Keeping in mind, as social workers, we always talk about meeting people where they are, and people are just in a different place than they may have been a month ago, and trying to provide those needs based on wherever they happen to be. So that could mean anything from food box distributions. Tomorrow I'm going to pack 100 food boxes that we'll then distribute on Friday through a partnership with our local food bank. It could be creating weekly SEL lessons, which we're doing as a social work department and posting them on our website, or creating a resource page for our website. And then also interfacing with teachers. I've been just participating in weekly grade level meetings so I can be present for our staff, see where they are, what their needs are, whether they're specific needs for specific students, or just to get an overall sense of how they're doing. And then we're sending out a weekly self-care activity or lesson or plan for our staff, just recognizing again that they're also struggling. So those are some of the ways that we are interfacing. We're still doing counseling when we can, via Zoom or through the phone. I have actually found myself doing what I'm calling almost respite, Zoom respite, for those parents who are very, very overwhelmed. So it's sort of pseudo counseling, but if me, chatting on Zoom with their child for 30 minutes gives them a break to be able to regroup and regulate and then be able to parent from a better place, I feel like that's well within the bounds of what I can offer as a school social worker.
Great. And this is whoever wants to answer, what community resources are you using most frequently at this point in time? Is there anything specific, or is it just a kind of a plethora of different places that you're referring families and students?
This is Yemen. I work in a very high need Title I urban school, and so for our families, it's the very basic resources. It's food,
Yeah.
financial assistance, housing. It's pretty much where people are right now. Employment opportunities.
Claudia, Bill, anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, a lot of general information, trying to not just help the students, but also help the families as far as, unemployment, where to get food banks, information like that. And
Okay, great. Claudia, anything you want to add?
We have in our district Touchstone Behavioral Health. They do counseling on site with our students when we have a site, and they are doing virtual mindfulness and just virtual different groups for students who already see them or students that are just interested in participating. So that's been a great resource.
Yeah, great. And then I want to end on some bright spots. Are there any bright spots that you've all discovered in this work and during this unprecedented time that would be good for us to hear about and be able to share with others? I'm going to start with Bill.
well, I'm hoping that there'll be a greater appreciation for what counselors do. I've had we've had a lot of teachers say, wow, I don't normally have to deal with that, or what, because it seems like students feel more comfortable to open up on video about when they're having a chat with them as compared to in front of a classroom. Maybe they're in the comfort of their own home or something and don't realize that if it's on a classroom chat, people aren't looking at them. But anyway, I feel like we've had a lot of issues where teachers were like, I couldn't believe this student shared this with me, and just situations and conversations they're finding out more about the home life of what's going on, the distractions, the things, the family, interactions that are happening. And so as far as, what do counselors do? How do we handle everything from academics to graduation and personal, social, emotional issues that are going on? I know in last year's budget, there was a school safety grant, which gave an additional $20 million for the hiring of social workers and counselors, as well as school resource officers. I hope when we come out of this that the legislature doesn't cut that funding, so that it keeps going, so that we can, people will realize that, wow, school counselors are a vital part of the educational process for all our students. And when we do get back, all these stressors don't go away. There's going to be trauma, there's going to be anxiety, and the school, the teachers, the counselors, social workers, the psychologists, we're all front line that are going to be dealing with this, and just make sure that we have the resources to take care of the children of Arizona.
Great, thanks. Claudia, do you want to add any bright spots that you've seen?
Yeah, I think in terms of my relationship with the people with whom I work, when we're seeing each other, we're just having more intimate conversations. And the whole idea about mental health and stress, we talk under the assumption that everyone is stressed and everyone is having a hard time. And so we have these really honest conversations about, yes, I'm having a bad day, yes, this is happening. And it's almost like the stigma of mental health is gone because everybody's under such stress, and it's just a baseline that we're all stressed. And so everyone just seems more comfortable talking about their state of mental health. And I think that can only be a positive thing moving forward. And then the other thing that I'm thinking about as a silver lining or a bright spot to all of this is that I think about talking to my grandfather and how he grew up during the Depression, and some stories that he was telling me of the things that he had to go through. And I think about my children, our students going through something significant like that and becoming resilient because of it, and having this greater awareness that they would have about the world, and just about that they can overcome things and work through hardships than they wouldn't otherwise have done.
Great, thank you. And Yemen.
I think one bright spot that I actually thought of earlier when the question was raised, or the stressor was raised about parents being angry or venting towards teachers, and of course that's true in some cases. But on the flip side of that, I've had a lot of teacher feedback talking about what good connections they've been able to make with parents in this format that they hadn't been able to do before. And I understand that comes at the cost of parents maybe being home or not working right now. But teachers are feeling cases about those connections and feeling like they've been able to be a support for parents as well. And again, parents might feel isolated, and so that weekly Zoom chat from the teacher may be, the most support that they get in their week. And I've had a couple of teachers saying that if we do go back to traditional learning, that maybe they will set up a weekly Zoom meeting in the evenings as a class so that they can kind of keep those connections, because that's just been such a benefit and such a bright spot that's come from this.
Yeah, I think the use of technology has really added to counselors and teachers, bag of tricks, the ways that they can mix up their lesson, the way information is presented and shared with everybody.
Great, thank you so much. So we're going to move on to let our professionals talk about resources that they have put together for us. And Claudia, I think you're first, if you'd like to, kind of walk us through the information that you've provided.
Sure. So it's broken down into 3 sections. There's information for parents and teachers. There's talking to children about COVID-19 and in English and Spanish. And then if you go to the NASP website, it's NASP on, if you click on any of these, it'll take you to the NASP website, but they have them in many different languages. And then helping children cope with changes resulting from COVID-19. And then a really nice handout on caring for caregivers. So how you can, what to look for in terms of when you as a teacher or caregiver are under stress, and how you can help, what to look for and how to work through that. And then there's information for school mental health providers and administration. So talking about doing things like virtual suicide assessments, threat assessments remotely. It just has some tools that school districts and teams can use to work through those events. And it is better to plan ahead, so that if a teacher does get an email in the middle of the night, they're not lost, and they have an idea of what they can do to reach out, who to reach out to, and who's going to help support that student. And then a tool for guidelines for responding to death in the COVID-19 context, unfortunately, but guidelines for administrators and crisis teams for when we're remote, but also when we're back on campus. And then information about special education. So things about delivering services in response to the shutdown, and then best practices. This is for school psychologists and the special educators in completing educational evaluations while schools are closed.
Great, thank you. Our next slide, I think, is Yemen. You had some additional options that you wanted.
Sure, and of course, this is not a complete or comprehensive list. I had gone I've taken a look at the Arizona Together page, and these were just a couple of mental health resources that I know school social workers use very frequently that I just didn't see mentioned on there. So the Teen Lifeline, which is a crisis line based out of Phoenix, and then the Pima County 24-hour crisis line. Then the other one is Castle. They have, I'm sorry, excuse me, they have created a special series particularly developed during this COVID-19 time. They're the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. So they have a number of free webinars, and they address things not only like resiliency for students, but also self-care for educators. That just might be a good resource to share with educators. And then the contact of our organization is on the bottom. So anybody in any district can reach out for support or for resources. I know that not every school, not every district necessarily has a school social worker, but we can definitely be a resource to educators in any school in any district. So
Great. I'm glad you said that, because I was going to make sure that you all were willing to do that, because we do have a lot of districts in Arizona that don't have access to some of the professional supports that we do in our more metropolitan areas. And then finally, Bill, I'm going to let you talk about the Counselor Association.
Yeah, I put the link to the National School Counselor Association, ASCA, American School Counselor Association. I figure if I've got school board members that would be listening, that they would check it out and encourage their school counselors to be working to implement the ASCA model, which is a comprehensive program. And on that model, you'll see that it recommends a school counselor ratio of 250 to 1. And as you know, Arizona is like worse in the country at 907 to 1. So please, take a look at that and into consideration. But there's a lot of links on here for counselors, for their own professional developments. Any counselor, teacher who says, I really couldn't find any information, really wasn't trying. There's, so much. Actually, it might be too much. You were just inundated with so many options with technology, ways to outreach, ways to connect. Just find one or two that you like and stick with it and go for it. But there's a lot of resources that counselors can use through this national website.
Great. I know that one of the things that my daughter said to me when this all started was, if one more of her friends sends her a link to an online curriculum or online, resource, she was going to scream, because there are so many of them. And so, we wanted to
There is overload.
provide kind of a more succinct repository of resources. So thank you, all of you, for doing that. I am seeing some questions, and I think one of the things you can see on one of the questions, one of the participants talked about a school counselor having office hours and students being able to sign up for that. And I think that's one of the things that teachers and all of our professionals need to do, is kind of set parameters around when they're available, because this is almost like it's 24/7 school. And, students are emailing and contacting, trying to connect with teachers and our school staff, at all hours of the day and night. And I think that's one of those self-care things that we should be thinking about as.
That is an issue with high schoolers. We have a login, where you check in at 8 a.m. and then your school day ends at 3. But a lot of high schoolers don't wake up until 1 p.m. And that's when the emails start rolling in.
Yes, right. Okay, great. I am going to wrap this up. We're just about at 4:30. First, thank you to all of our presenters for being with us today. You'll see here on this slide the information for both Carol and I as the hosts, and then all of the presenters were kind enough to allow us to give you their email addresses. So if you have questions, you can follow up with them directly. And the last thing I want to do is thank you for joining. We do have a survey that you can fill out. You can see the link here in this slide, and we'd love to get your feedback on this. Thank you to Alec and Yemen, Claudia and Bill for being with us today. We really appreciate everything that you're doing during this time and everything that you do all the time. And Carol, did you want to add any closing thoughts or statements?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much. The chat was wonderful today, and I appreciate all the extra resources that people have provided. And know that use those email addresses and contact us if you have additional questions. We're happy to be here. We're happy to help. So thank you from GCU and Canyon Professional Development, as well as the Arizona School Boards Association.
Thanks so much. And you all will be getting a copy of this webinar emailed to you when we have it uploaded and ready to go. So you can look for that in the very near future. And we're going to sign off for now. Thank you.
Thank you.